Dear viewers, we are broadcasting live from the scene in Zhengzhou, where just a few hours ago, the city endured one of the strongest storms in history. At around 7 p.m. on September 20th, 2024, the sky over Zhengzhou suddenly turned pitch black, before a massive storm swept through the city at an unimaginable speed. The winds were so powerful that even century-old trees were uprooted, and bricks and debris from buildings fell, creating terrifying sounds and threatening anyone still on the streets. Within just a few minutes, the entire city plunged into darkness and chaos, as thousands of residents were caught off guard by this devastating disaster. What you are witnessing is the horrifying aftermath of the storm that swept through just a few hours ago. Right here on the main street of Zhengzhou, night market vendors had prepared for what they expected to be a busy evening, just like any other day. But in the blink of an eye, all their small stalls were blown away by the fierce wind, with tables, chairs, and belongings torn apart and scattered like pieces of paper. For these people, their market stalls were not just a means of income, but often the only source of livelihood for their families. Now, everything has been reduced to rubble. This scene before us is not just the destruction of physical property, but also the breaking of spirits for those who already work so hard just to make a living. Can you imagine the despair of these people as they watched the storm sweep away everything they had worked so hard to build? Just a few hours ago, these night market vendors were still hoping to earn a little extra income for their families, but now everything has been reduced to rubble. Chairs, tables, goods, all completely destroyed. This man, like hundreds of others, has lost not only his possessions, but also his hope. The howling winds still echo in the air, casting a blanket of fear over everything. In this haunting silence, people can do nothing but stand in helplessness, watching their world crumble before their eyes. The residents of Zhengzhou were not spared from the terror as the storm struck. The eerie howling of the powerful winds echoed everywhere, like a giant monster roaring just outside their windows. Many people jumped up in panic as their windows shook violently, producing frightening crashing sounds. Some apartments even had their windows ripped out of their frames by the force of the wind, and residents had to rush to hold them shut, fearing that just one more gust would cause their entire home to collapse. In a state of chaos, many fled into the hallways, too afraid to return to their beds, knowing that at any moment, the wind could bring disaster crashing down on them. It wasn't just homes, but vehicles on the streets that became victims of this terrifying storm. Ancient trees were uprooted, crushing many cars, while debris from buildings flew everywhere like sharp arrows. Many drivers had to abandon their vehicles and seek shelter, hoping to escape the disaster unfolding around them. The sound of ambulance sirens blared repeatedly, but rescue teams faced immense difficulty reaching the hardest-hit areas. Streets that were once bustling are now reduced to piles of rubble, and rescue efforts have been severely hampered by the overwhelming destruction caused by the storm. Ladies and gentlemen, what we are witnessing is just the beginning of a more terrifying disaster. According to reports from the Henan Provincial Meteorological Station, this storm is not only affecting Zhengzhou, but is also spreading to other areas such as Anyang, Hebei, and even Xinjiang and Kaifeng. The combination of strong convection and cold winds from the north has created an unpredictable force, and experts are warning that the situation could worsen in the coming hours. We urge everyone to remain extremely vigilant and prepare for any potential emergencies that may arise. In areas like Xinjiang and Kaifeng, residents are racing against time to secure their homes before the storm arrives. The sky has turned dark, a foreboding sign, and the wind is beginning to blow in strong gusts. People are using whatever they can, wood, metal, and even sandbags, to reinforce windows and rooftops, hoping their efforts will be enough to withstand the approaching storm. But with the destructive force we've seen in Zhengzhou, no one can be certain that they will escape the devastating impact of this storm. Back in Zhengzhou, the storm brought not only fierce winds but also turned the sky pitch black. No light could penetrate the thick clouds that covered the entire city. The wind howled like the terrifying scream of an invisible monster, sweeping away everything in its path. Objects blown by the wind slammed into walls, doors, and rooftops, creating an endless, chaotic, and frightening noise. For those inside their homes, it was a sleepless night, as fear clung to them with every gust of wind. Meanwhile, rescue teams are doing their utmost to reach the hardest-hit areas. However, with debris scattered everywhere, moving around has become incredibly difficult. Fallen trees block the roads, debris from buildings flies through the air, and overturned vehicles litter the streets. With each passing minute, rescue efforts become more urgent as calls for help from those trapped in the darkness echo through the night. The rescue teams are facing a life-and-death battle as they race against time and harsh conditions to save those in need. According to monitoring by the Henan Provincial Meteorological Station, over the past 12 hours, most areas in the province have recorded wind speeds of level 8 or higher, with some places reaching levels 10 and 11. Areas such as Duomen, Majia, and Jinglu have reported wind speeds of up to 30 meters per second, equivalent to level 11 winds. These figures are not just statistics, but clear evidence of the destructive power of this storm. Even more concerning is the forecast that the storm is expected to continue in the coming hours, with many other areas needing to prepare for similar dangers. The wind speeds recorded at the three meteorological stations in Duomen, Majia, and Jinglu reached up to 30 meters per second, equivalent to level 11, an extremely dangerous level. Winds this strong can not only topple buildings, but also blow away any object in their path. This means that even sturdy structures can suffer severe damage, and anyone caught outdoors is at serious risk of injury. As dawn breaks, Zhengzhou is no longer the bustling city we once knew. Instead, what remains is only rubble and devastation. Trees have been uprooted, houses have collapsed, and cars that once served as transportation are now just piles of metal beneath fallen trees. This scene is hard to imagine, but it is the harsh reality that thousands of residents here are facing after a night of terror. Rescue teams continue to work tirelessly, but with such widespread destruction, it will take many days, if not weeks, to recover. After the storm, not only is there severe physical damage, but the weather has also become harsher than ever. Temperatures in Zhengzhou dropped sharply after the storm passed, with the day's high barely reaching 25 degrees Celsius and the low plunging to 15. People who lost their homes are now left standing outside, enduring the biting cold. Meanwhile, other areas of Henan are facing similar conditions, and no one can be certain that the situation will improve anytime soon. We urge all of you in the affected areas to be prepared for emergency situations. Nature is showing its fury, and we don't know when this storm will end. Protect your family and yourselves by securing your homes, ensuring everyone's safety, and staying indoors unless absolutely necessary. This is the time for us to face the greatest challenge from nature this year. And now, as the sun has risen, Zhengzhou is facing a harsh reality. A city once bustling and lively is now left with desolate streets, collapsed buildings, fallen trees, and confusion etched on the faces of its residents. They still cannot believe that in just one night, their entire lives have been turned upside down. We will continue to provide updates on the storm in the coming hours, but at this moment, Zhengzhou is confronting one of the worst disasters in its history.